Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. I'm also excited to share my book, Straight from the Admissions Office, a review of my biggest takeaways from the first few hundred podcast episodes. It's packed with direct insights from admissions professionals and practical tips to help students and their families navigate the college admissions process. You can find all of the information in the show notes. Welcome to the CAPP, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to the CAPP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Rebecca Simons, who's the Director of Admission at Wellesley College. Rebecca, it is so great to have you here today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, John. I am good and looking forward to an upcoming summer vacation.
Fantastic. And we're also looking forward to a great conversation welcoming Wellesley back. The first time we had Wellesley represented on the podcast was episode 96, which was released back in February of 2023. Can you share what's new at Wellesley since that last conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be happy to. I don't think I have anything as groundbreaking as U Michigan offering ED, but there are several new things that are going on at Wellesley. So a few I would love to talk about. I think the first is just that we are doing on-campus visits again. At Wellesley, we had been very cautious about COVID and the pandemic and bringing guests to campus. So we spent many years actually not hosting prospective students and families on campus. So we are back full force with a full array of tour and visit options throughout the weekday, some offerings on the weekends. So that's really exciting. So I think for a long time, people wanted to visit Wellesley, but we weren't offering things to our guests. So please, people should feel free to come and visit. It is an absolutely stunning campus. And in that same vein, we are actually back on the road. We had taken a hiatus actually right before COVID started. And we were, again, a little bit hesitant to go out on the road as early as some of our peers. So we are, again, doing a full complement of travel this fall, this spring. We're also doing a trip internationally. So excited to, meet students where they are. And get to travel all over the country meeting students. In terms of our campus, we're super excited, as are our students, that we are just finishing a remodel of our library. So that is opening up this fall. So students are very excited to have that back. We also have just opened up a brand new health and counseling building. Previously, health services and the counseling center had actually been separate. So we thought it made a lot of sense to bring them back together. So they're in a nice new shiny building, which is great. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we've actually changed our supplement. I think especially for college counselors who are very familiar with applications and applying, Wellesley had what we call the Wellesley 100 for many, many years. It was kind of pick one of these 100 things and talk about Wellesley. And it was great and it was entertaining to read. But we really wanted to, challenge our applicants to think maybe a little bit more critically. So it will be the second cycle that we're using a new supplemental essay, which is really talking about building bridges, which I think is a really important skill more so than ever right now. So those are just some of the things happening on campus.
Well, we appreciate the overview. And anytime you're remodeling or building brand new buildings, you know that the future continues to look bright for Wellesley. And we're going to unpackage the overall application review process and we'll come back to the supplemental essay. But I was also curious, Rebecca, how would you describe Wellesley academically, socially, and even geographically? And what distinguishes it not only as a top liberal arts college, but as a women's college in the 21st century?
Yeah, those are all great questions. I think Academically, most people are pretty familiar with Wellesley's academic reputation, and I think it's really one of the driving factors for why students apply to Wellesley. We are fortunate at Wellesley to be a small liberal arts school, 2,300 students. And what that means in terms of academics is that all of our classes are taught by faculty. We only have undergraduate students on our campus. The average class size is 16. And 99% of classes actually have less than 40 students. So for students who are really looking to build strong relationships with faculty, to have, really exciting class discussions, they're going to be able to have that at Wellesley. And it's a place where faculty truly are mentors. So for a certain group of students, being in a classroom of 7 people and really digging into the material with your professor is a really fantastic thing. And that's really what Wellesley can provide academically. Socially, Wellesley is a really tight-knit community. As you can imagine, the students that Wellesley attracts are a self-selecting group, and they're looking for a community where they can really come as they are and learn from the different perspectives, bond over the unique and wonderful experience that a women's college is. I think there is this common misconception that a women's college maybe lacks social life, but that is certainly not the case at Wellesley. Our students very much work hard and play hard. And I think a lot of the social life does have to do with our location. And I know folks hear all the time kind of that best of both worlds, but Wellesley really truly feels geographically like the best of both worlds. We are located in a suburban town 12 miles outside of Boston. And for folks that aren't familiar, I would say Boston is probably the best college town in the country. I'm biased, I'm from the area. But Wellesley students are able to benefit from a free shuttle that goes into Boston and Cambridge every day. On the weekends, I think they have to pay $6 round trip. So it's very easy to get into Boston and Cambridge. You will have a friend in the city. You will want to visit the Boston Public Library, cross-register, etc. So I think the geographic location is great. We're a 500-acre campus. Our students like to call it a forest. I can't think of a more idyllic place to go to college. I can look out my window right now and look at our beautiful Lake Waban. Not many people have a lake view from their office. So geographically, I think it's a fantastic place. And then your last question, which is about kind of what distinguishes Wellesley, not just as a top liberal arts college, but as a women's college in the 21st century, I think a couple things help distinguish us. I mean, I think we're really focused on inclusive excellence at Wellesley, and that means that every student is challenged and encouraged to thrive academically at the highest level. And this is how we learn what we truly are capable of. So it's something that we really talk about. And I think Wellesley really just provides the opportunity for students to think deeply about how to create a world that we would be proud to live in. I think some people don't recognize that Wellesley is the highest liberal arts college to send women into STEM PhDs. So this is not just women's colleges, this is all liberal arts colleges. And I believe that Wellesley actually sends the most women of any liberal arts school into PhDs for physics. So it's really preparing students for those next steps, for feeling confident about maybe what is the unknown and kind of taking that head on, being critical thinkers, adaptable, which are all skills that students are going to need more so than ever moving into this next, the next few years.
Well, that's a tremendous overview. And I know quite a few students over the years that have been at Wellesley, and of course, nothing but great things to say about the academics, the social life, and of course, you mentioned Boston, which I agree with you. It's definitely one of the best cities, especially as a college town, because there are so many great schools and so many things to do, both socially, culturally, and what have you. Now, Wellesley students benefit also from cross registration with MIT, Olin, and Babson. Can you share how students typically take advantage of those opportunities and how this access complements the liberal arts experience on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's also not forget about Brandeis. They are also a school that you can cross-register at. So our students are so fortunate to have so many opportunities so close by. I want to say around half of our students will take the opportunity to cross-register at one of these campuses. Again, we are fortunate to have this free shuttle on the weekdays that goes into Cambridge and drops students off basically right in front of MIT. So that is a popular option for our students to take advantage of. We also are part of Olin Babson Wellesley Consortium. We're all located in the town of Wellesley, so it's very easy to get to those campuses and be involved in their different clubs and organizations. We've had student workers who've been in different plays at Babson. We have a Babson Olin Wellesley ice skating club because Babson has an ice skating rink. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved. I would say MIT is a very attractive option for our students to take a class. And that's something that you can begin, I believe, as early as your second semester, your first year. So students are able to take the shuttle into Cambridge and take a class at MIT. Our Wellesley students are also able to take advantage of the undergraduate research opportunities program, so the UROP, students like to call it. So they're actually also able to do research at MIT, which is really attractive. But what I think is really cool is that students aren't all just clamoring to take engineering courses at MIT. We have a student worker who just took a creative writing class at MIT because she just wanted to have the experience of going to a large university in a co-ed environment and seeing what that was like. And she had a blast. So I think that these are fantastic ways to, add to your experience at Wellesley, to experience a co-ed environment. But I think a lot of times students go to these classes at other campuses and are just even more thankful for the small, intimate class sizes and faculty knowing your name and things like that. But it's something, if you're able to fit it in your schedule, which about half of our students are, it's a fantastic opportunity.
Well, that's a tremendous overview of the whole program and the opportunities not only on your campus but beyond. And I always put the Office of Undergraduate Admissions in the show notes. Rebecca, if there are any other links that you want to share, because you covered so many great things about Wellesley, just send the links to me, and of course, we'll make them available to our students and families who, by the way, definitely want to hear about this thing called the application review process. So, can you walk us through Wellesley's admissions review and how holistic it is, and what are the most important elements your team is looking for when reviewing those applications?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do my best. Wellesley truly is a holistic reading experience when we're reviewing applications. And for folks who are not familiar with the term holistic, it means we're looking at everything. It doesn't mean that I'm just popping in your GPA and your SAT scores and out pops your decision. We are really looking at every facet from your high school transcript to your school counselor recommendations to your teacher recommendations to the high school that you attend, the activities or part-time job that you do, and really taking all that information together and kind of assessing whether or not we think you would be a strong academic match for Wellesley, but also a great community member. So at Wellesley, we do committee-based evaluation. So this is a paired read. So the first read of most of our applications are going to be by two counselors. So I know this is a little bit different from the traditional reading applications. And so our counselors are each focused on a different part of the application. One counselor will review more of the academic criteria, and one counselor will review what we consider more of the personal qualities, the essay, the letter of recommendation. And then these counselors will come together to share their views of the application, to maybe point out what they've noticed, and come to an agreement together. So I think that paired reading is a really fantastic way for our counselors to read. It helps to break down biases. It helps to be able to kind of talk it out loud in real time. So we have found that to be really productive for us. And what it does mean is that unlike just doing a read by yourself, where you're, kind of skimming, the whole app, this allows each reader to really kind of dive into the area that they're looking at, and then come back with kind of what they've found. Like, oh, did you notice a dip in junior year? And then the reader reading the extracurriculars in the letter goes, oh, actually that person's, grandfather passed away that year. That's probably why that's happening. And they have a conversation. And then they will pick a kind of decision to move forward with. And then the majority of applications are also second read by either myself or the dean. So there are a lot of eyes on the applications. And in some case, applications will go through a committee process where there'll be a larger group. I always get asked, what's the most important thing in the application? We cannot move forward with any application until we feel that students are academically qualified to handle the rigors of Wellesley. So the first thing that we want to make sure of is that a student is academically qualified to attend Wellesley. We want them to succeed at Wellesley. We want them to pass our quantitative reasoning test, entry test. We want them to pass well, it's not really a writing exam, but they have to, be strong writers. So we want to feel confident they're going to do well at Wellesley. Of course, that doesn't mean they're not going to hit a speed bump in college or get a C or, miss a class, but we want to feel like that foundation is there. So the first thing that we look at is really the high school transcript. The classes that students are taking, are they taking rigor when it's available to them? Does their school offer honors or APs or IBs or dual enrollment? And once we decide, okay, this student can do the work, then we're really looking at everything else. Does the student understand Wellesley? It is a women's college. It might not be for everyone. Are they engaged with Wellesley? Have they been taking advantage of the numerous webinars and opportunities to speak with us? What do their teachers and counselors have to say about them? What are they doing with their time? So all of that, again, goes into that holistic process. But I really do believe the baseline is truly, are you academically qualified? And most students are, because they recognize the type of institution that Wellesley is. And that's when you get in a bit of a pickle, when you have more qualified applicants than you have spots for. And that's when we're really digging in to the essays and the recommendations and, the art portfolios and things like that to see what they can bring to our campus and ensure that they're going to be happy and our faculty are going to be happy teaching them as well.
Well, you definitely did a great job explaining your holistic approach, which again means that you're looking at all of the components of the application. I appreciate how you talked about the fact that number one, you're looking for, are you an academic match? And two, what type of community member that you're going to be. And I also loved how Wellesley does paired reading. One counselor is looking at the academics, the other counselor is looking at the personal qualities, and then they come together to make a decision on that student. And so every application that you receive, at least two people are looking at it, and you're very thoughtful and mindful to give that child the best possible review that you can. Now, for students applying through early decision or early action, are there any notable differences in how applications are reviewed compared to regular decision? And what advice would you give to students considering an early application to Wellesley?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like early decision comes up more and more. We review files the same way in early decision as we do in regular decision. Yes, our students in early decision have a slightly higher acceptance rate, but that again is because of this self-selecting population that has done its research. They want to be at Wellesley. They are our cheerleaders. We want them to be here. So it's kind of win-win on both sides. And for the past couple of years, typically we've taken around 50% out of ED1 and ED2. So there's plenty of room for our regular decision applicants as well. I think what's really important when you're thinking about early decision is to be intentional. Apply early decision because you want to be at that school, not because you are trying to beat the odds and you don't know much about the school, but you know it's highly ranked. That's not going to end well if you get in or you don't get in. So you really want to think to yourself, you want to have these conversations with your parents, your guardians, your school counselors. Does this make sense for me? Do I feel comfortable saying that I'm going to make a binding commitment to this school for the next 4 years of my life? And some students are self-aware and realize that they're not able to do that. And other students are like, yes, that's where I want to be. I've visited, everybody's on board. I'm not concerned about my financial aid award. Great, go ahead, apply ED. I think somebody said this once, and it really stuck with me. They said, imagine that you get into every college you apply to, but you still want to go to Wellesley or XYZ college. Okay, that's the school that you should apply early to. Our financial aid awards are the same in early decision as they are in regular, so that shouldn't be an impact. But we recognize some students will need to compare their financial aid packages and whatnot. So again, just be really thoughtful. Make sure you've got the buy-in from those around you. I can't stress that enough.
Well, we appreciate that, particularly the fact that the best way to demonstrate your interest in any school is if, in fact, you're applying to them ED, which, of course, is early decision, a binding agreement. I also appreciate how you talked about the fact that it is slightly higher in terms of your selection rate. It's about 50% for students that apply ED1 and ED2. And I also, again, appreciate the fact that you talked about financial aid being the same whether you're applying ED or not. That's a question that comes up a lot with families. They feel that, well, if I apply ED, that means that I'm not going to get as much of a financial package, which clearly is not true at Wellesley. So we appreciate that, Rebecca. And just to unpackage the overall application review just a little further, when evaluating GPA and coursework, does Wellesley recalculate GPAs? And if so, how do you weigh honors, AP, IB, or dual enrollment courses within each student's academic context? Because, of course, they're coming from hundreds, if not thousands, of high schools.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this, but I just want to clarify something you just said and just be clear that we are taking approximately 50% of our students in ED. The admit rate is not 50% out of
Understood.
ED.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure that's clear.
Thank you for that
Um,
clarification.
I get asked all the time how we evaluate GPA and coursework from school to school. Do we recalculate, etc.? We do not recalculate GPA. We do not have time to do that. We take what is given to us. But we also are very familiar with the schools and territories that we read. And at Wellesley, we read by territory. So that's geographic region. So we're familiar with the school. We're familiar what is offered. We are not going to compare one high school to another. That is just absolutely not fair. We are looking at the student within the context of their high school, what is offered to them, the resources available. So again, we do not recalculate GPA. We will not penalize a student because their school doesn't offer honors, or this year they didn't have enough students signing up for AP Spanish, so it wasn't offered. We are looking at, again, what you are able to do within the confines of what's available to you.
Well, that's such a great point, and it leads to that thing called the school profile. Students, that's the document that admissions representatives get so that they understand the full context of your high school. So, as part of your own application, if you're not familiar with your own school's profile, it might be a great idea to reach out to your school counseling office or do a search online so that you can see what the admissions professionals are seeing on the other end when they're reviewing your application. Now, Rebecca, I also know that Wellesley is in fact test optional. Do you have any insights in terms of helping students decide whether or not to submit SAT or ACT scores as part of their application?
Yeah, that is a question that we get a lot. We are test optional. We are proud to be test optional currently. Um, I couldn't tell you what our middle 50% SAT range is off the top of my head. And I think that shows you that it is certainly not the most important thing that I am thinking about. I will say 42% of our incoming first year class applied test optional. So it is a very popular option. I think when we are looking at testing, if you decide to submit your testing, we really are looking at it within the context of your school and the resources available to you. Currently, students who are submitting testing have done really well. And that is why you see these inflated SAT ranges that are quite intimidating. So I really encourage you, again, for these school profiles that all of your schools have, to look and see what the middle 50% SAT or ACT ranges are for your school, because that's really what we're going to zero in on when we're looking at your testing. I always say if you're proud of your testing and you think it is a good indicator of your academic potential, feel free to send it in. If you are not excited about it or you're worried that it might impact your chances, just don't send it in. Again, 42% of our incoming class, the students who are enrolling, applied test optional. We did not see any testing for them.
And I appreciate how you added the fact that you're looking at standardized tests based on the context of the student's high school, which I think is a very important point. Now, how do essays and letters of recommendation factor into Wellesley's application process? And are there certain qualities you hope to see reflected in these more narrative components of the overall application?
Yeah, I think that essays and letters of recommendation are really important in the application process at Wellesley, especially because so many of the students who apply are academically qualified. And that's when we're really looking at everything else. And I mean, the thing around the essays and the recommendations is that it's providing another dimension to the application that is beyond the transcript, where I can see your rigor and I can see your grades. When I think about letters of recommendation, I really enjoy when I see, a teacher talk about how a student interacts with their peers in class. How do they handle adversity? Are they open to different points of views and feedback? I can see on the transcript how a student's doing in class, but when a teacher, a counselor is able to add in that extra information that I can't see, is when it really, really is important. We're hoping to see qualities like critical thinking. Are they a good classmate? Things like that, which are really important. And for essays, and I know essays are something that students spend a lot of time stressing out about. It's one piece of the puzzle. It's always great to be able to picture a student on our campus after we read their essay, but many times it's not going to be make or break in the application. So write about what you want to write about. I'm a firm believer that you can make the Common App prompts kind of work to whatever you want to speak about, and go from there. But typically essays that have been more successful, you can really feel the passion behind it, or that a student is really excited, or it was a really meaningful event in their life. And those are the essays that resonate, I think, the most with us.
Well, we appreciate you sharing the human aspect of the overall review, right? You're looking at a transcript. That alone tells you whether or not a student performed well, the courses that they took based on what was available. But in terms of that human element, obviously the essay does come into play. Now, earlier, you talked about a shift from the Wellesley 100 to a change in your supplemental essay. Could you give us some insights in terms of why the change, but also what specifically are you looking for in that supplemental that's perhaps not so easily found in other parts of the overall application?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there was a couple reasons behind the change. I think with the Wellesley 100, and again, we had a lot of fun reading those essays, but it could be a little bit formulaic. You could just pick, I want to pick number Wellesley 71. I love the Science Center because I love science. And this new essay, which is specifically asking students to talk about an experience working alongside students with different backgrounds, like that's going to be unique to the student. And that's what we're really trying to do, is find out about the student. I think in this day and age, especially on colleges campuses, when there's so much discourse, we want to better understand how students will react if they're, in a classroom with somebody with a different point of view. Will they be respectful? Will they be open-minded? We want to hear about what lessons they have to bring to Wellesley about being around others with different perspectives and things like that. So I think we've really enjoyed just this past year reading these, and again, getting a unique answer from every single student, where that might not have been what we got out of the Wellesley 100. But It's another opportunity for students to also maybe talk a little bit about Wellesley might be a great fit for them and what they might be able to take away from Wellesley. So it's been really solid this first year, and we're excited for its second year.
Well, I appreciate you talking about the fact that what you're looking for is to find out something more about the student. Again, students, it's all about you. Many times, students will write about a family member, for example, where 90% of the essay is about the family member and there's very little about you. So it's important to answer that question. How can I share more information to, in this case, Wellesley College about me? Now, another thing that students and families have been emailing me about is this thing called institutional priorities. So, Rebecca, how large, for example, is your incoming first year class, and how do institutional priorities like geographic diversity or in state versus out of state balance shape Wellesley's enrollment strategies from year to year?
Well, it sounds like you have very advanced level of college searchers at your
We do.
school, and I
Well
love
educated
when
people.
a family member or student asks about institutional priorities. I think it's really important actually to ask about these. At Wellesley, the past few years, including this year, we have the goal has been to enroll a first year class of around 585 students. So again, we are a small liberal arts school, so that might seem very teeny tiny for some folks, but that is our goal. Within that 585, we aim to be around 14% international, so that is non-US citizens. So that is something that we have an eye to. I think I would say that I feel very fortunate because as I'm doing my job and working with the team, there are no must haves, must do's. Yes, we are keeping an eye on geographic diversity. We do not want to enroll a class of 50% Californians or any other state, although we probably could. So we keep an eye on that. We are a liberal arts college, so we keep an eye on the different academic disciplines that students are reporting, understanding that we just admit to Wellesley and not an academic experience. So if a student really wants to study biology, we'll never really know until they graduate. We are, looking to increase our first generation students on campus, our Pell eligible students. But there's nothing so unique like we need more classics majors or we need more students from Idaho. If we have amazing students and they all come from the same state or the same high school, we're going to take them. But yes, we do try to keep an eye on, all different aspects to create that well-rounded class.
Well, we appreciate the insights. And of course, another big conversation topic for so many students and their families is college affordability. So, financial aid, of course, is such a central component for so many of our families that listen. Can you share how merit based scholarships and need based aid work at Wellesley and how students can position themselves for maximum consideration?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think it's important to note that Wellesley's financial aid is entirely focused on need-based financial aid. So at Wellesley College, we do not offer merit scholarships. And I'm saying that loud and proud that we are focusing on need-based aid. But I do think at some points it comes as a surprise once a student is admitted and they said, "Where's my merit scholarship?" You say, "Oh, we don't do that at Wellesley." So again, it's really about doing your research. The average grant at Wellesley, so that's money that you don't pay back, is a little over $66,000. So we really are quite proud of our financial aid budget. In fact, almost 60% of our students are receiving some form of need-based aid at Wellesley. Um, our Student Financial Service Office does an amazing job and works to cap 4 years of loans at no more than $15,000. And then for some families with incomes of less than 100,000, they won't receive loans in their package. So Wellesley is really focused on making this college affordable. Yes, we come with a hefty price tag. We are aware of that. But we want to make sure that the students who want to be here are able to afford to be here.
Well, we appreciate that and so many other tips and insights throughout this amazing conversation. Rebecca, before I get to the last question, I always like to ask, is there a question I didn't ask that you wish that I had? Or is there a topic that simply didn't come up in the conversation that you'd like to share with all of our listeners now?
Yeah, I think it is a great question, one I also like to ask when I'm interviewing students and potential, hires. I think I would love to just spend a moment just talking about the impact of a women's education. I myself am a product of a women's college, so a proud alum of a women's college. Was raised by a Wellesley alum, and it is just such a transformational experience. And I think some students aren't able to understand that until they're here and experience it for themselves. But and I think my colleague says it best. Attending a women's college is not about the absence of men, but the presence of women. And when we say that, we're talking about as leaders present in every aspect of college life, from House presidents to the president of Wellesley. I mean, how many times in your life are you going to be able to have an experience that's dedicated entirely to women, where the gym is built with the women in mind, where you don't have to, be worried about speaking up? So I can't emphasize enough the confidence that's built, the voice that students are able to create, and just the empowerment of asking questions and thinking to themselves, why not me? And I think it's really powerful. And I think that's also why you see so many women's college graduates in, CEO roles, Fortune 500s, in government, because they were never told no. They were told, you should be speaking up, you should be asking these questions. It can be you. You should be negotiating for your salary. And again, it's just a really transformative experience. So I'm happy to help enroll some of these next amazing women leaders. So that's what I would add.
Well, I'm so glad I asked that question because you added a lot. That was a tremendous answer. We really appreciate it. And again, this was an awesome conversation. Unfortunately, Rebecca, it does lead us to that last question, which is, and by the way, you gave lots of pieces of advice already, but what are your top three pieces of advice for students and their families who are preparing for the college admissions process?
Oh gosh, if I have to narrow it down to three. So I think the first piece of advice I'll give is about having an open and frank conversation about finances. There are more times than I would like that we have admitted a student, they're excited to come, and then they find out that maybe the family can't afford to pay, maybe they are not willing to pay, just things that probably could have been avoided. I can't stress enough to students and families to use the net price calculator that is required of all colleges to have. And I will put a plug in for the My Intuition price calculator. That was actually created by a Wellesley economics professor. It is meant to make the net price calculator experience a bit more simplistic and easy to do. There's 8 questions. So it was created by this econ professor who was going through the college process himself with his kids and was like, this is so complicated. I'm going to create something better. So I can't stress enough, if you are coming from, a family that has 2 parents, that doesn't own a business, the net price calculator is going to be a really useful tool to give you a sense of what you might look for in terms of a financial aid package. So please talk about finances before you apply. The second piece of advice I would give, recognizing that this can be a stressful process, it can be an all encompassing process, is to create some boundaries or some safe spaces. Like at dinner, we won't talk about college or applying to college or anything related to academics. You'll let family members know before Thanksgiving that like asking about college is off limits. So I've heard varying levels of success with this and ways that have been implemented. So definitely like you want to have time where you're not talking about college. So finding that time. And then the last piece of advice that I give to anybody who will listen is to not apply to a college that you wouldn't be happy attending. I know it might seem silly, But a lot of times there might be that one college that's the only college you get into, and you're like, oh man, I didn't want to go there. Then why did you apply? All right. If you only apply to colleges that you would be excited going to, you're only going to have a fantastic spring full of opportunities and have fun with it.
Definitely have fun with it. And those were great pieces of advice. I'm so glad that you mentioned the net price calculator and more importantly, the My Intuition website, which we will link in the show notes. Set limits. And of course, don't apply to college students that you have no intentions of attending. That is such great advice. Rebecca, this was awesome. I'm so grateful that you gave of your time and your expertise today. Thank you so much. You were awesome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAPP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAPP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.